back to
Doughnuts.
Doughnuts. I'm Jeff,
I'm Mitchell.
and we're making donuts.
Am I not live on the camera?
It looks like you're not live on the camera.
No, it's just a frozen image of me drawing.
What can I do about that?
I have no idea. We can just go with my own disembodied voice. It's fine. Be right back. Oh, okay.
It'll be right back, and then we're gonna. Oh, that ain't it.
Nope.
Double Cintiq, that's us. Why are you frozen? Yeah, I don't even see the camera.
Is the camera on? Well, again, everyone can still see me or see my screen,
Yeah,
and they can hear me, so it's fine.
as dynamic as the drawing portions of our video.
You just get to see a still of my face.
Yeah. Okay. Well. All right. So welcome back to Mitch and Jeff do some
Doughnuts.
donuts for the VR lab at DHL. Is there anything that we're at, as you all remember, in the thrilling conclusion of
Like a month ago.
last month's episode, Mitchell's donut crashed right at the end of the episode.
Yeah, so I've now borrowed. I did air quotes there. I've borrowed Jeff's donut, and now we're both working off the same basis.
Yeah, 2 electric donuts. You can make yours,
Or maybe I'll make mine plasma instead of electric.
plasma. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, is there anything else? We had some issues sending the file over. Is there anything else that you needed to change before we get into the tutorial?
I don't think so.
I wanted to. Why are my sprinkles messed up? Which do you
I think we might not have completely finished the geometry notes section. Let me look.
I'm trying to.
I'll pull up. Oh, yeah, it has my whole screen. That's fun.
Oh, hey.
Let's turn off.
Oh.
Wait, do I have a red donut now?
You do have a red donut now.
That doesn't. It's green on my screen.
That's interesting.
It's really weird. That. What? What?
Yeah.
Well, this stream has been full of surprises so far.
Yeah, this is our April Fool's episode.
Yeah.
We're the fools.
Yep, it's us.
April.
It was us the whole time. Let me go to. I heard a shutter. Okay. Points on faces, density factor.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. Our emergency support.
Aha! My hands. Well, welcome Welcome back, everybody. I don't think you left, but here we are with more donuts. Is mine... It is still rendering some stuff red. That's so weird.
Just when it outputs?
Yeah, like all these, like, there's like these green lines for the geometry nodes. You, like, look at Jeff's for a second here on his screen. Do you see those green, like, connector lines on the nodes?
Yeah.
They're rendering as red on
Oh, they're
mine.
coming out red.
That's so weird. It's so, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter.
That's wild. Yeah, it's just, I think it's just like specifically red-green stuff.
Yeah.
Just an old HDMI.
Maybe it's a problem with the HDMI port not giving green.
Some other stuff, like you're not getting...
Yeah, there's like this video down here. This one right here with the red. That's supposed to
Yeah.
be grass. It's like green.
Cool. Well, that's just even more psychedelic for your donut.
Yeah. It's going to be really hard to like figure out what to do without the right color channel.
Yeah. Well, you'll know in your heart that it's the right colors.
That's true.
And then the audience at home can they can guess.
Yeah.
And write it.
That's half the fun.
Okay, so we're fixing, this is too many sprinkles. How did I do that?
How did you do that? I'm trying to look at his thing here, but he's so zoomed in.
So, were you just trying to change the density of your sprinkles?
I think so. I'm trying to figure out...
I just adjusted the density max on my distribute points on face.
I think so, yeah. That seems right. And then I think the thing that I'm trying to figure out is how do we do... like his seemed to follow the curve of the donut.
He definitely talked about that.
And yours seem to do that, but they like poke out, which doesn't seem to be the right.
Doesn't seem like how sprinkles work.
Yeah, like
Well, maybe we should go back a video and just kind of click around until we find it.
maybe that's kind of what I'm trying to do is go through this last video. So this is before there, before this. Okay, we haven't done it yet.
Just got one sprinkle that's just kind of floating up here.
Okay, here we go. Something like that. Okay, what is cylinder in this? Oh, okay, it's instancing that. And what is it instancing that on?
JoJo asks, vroom vroom donut.
Oh, okay. Vroom vroom donut indeed, Joseph.
But it's also it's VR room. VR
Yeah.
room donut.
That's what it is.
So-
Have you seen? I can pull this up real quick, but
No. What?
don't do it.
No, you can pull it up. I
Alright.
haven't seen.
Okay, yeah. So let me go to my. Have to excuse my self thing, but we made a game, Vroom Vroom Taco, and it is VR room.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a cooking game, and we're making donuts now instead of tacos.
Okay. I would love to play this game. Maybe if we finish up early.
Yeah. I think we actually have it on one of the VR Studio machines.
Really?
Oh, actually, no, it would be on one of the ones we replaced. But we can get it because we can download it. Let's come to the VR Studio. Check out Vroom Vroom Taco. It's a good game.
Yeah. DHL. We'll be happy to show you. Okay, so
It still seems like we have some sort of like distribute points on faces, instance points. It seems like yours for some reason are just like they're mapping to it, but they're doing weird rotation stuff.
Yeah, I think it was the rotate Euler was what that...
Okay, yeah, you have Euler, rotation, random value, but you only have it set to be... Oh, okay, what... No. Does he only have it set to be on the z-axis? Oh, okay, so he is doing rotation with something. There's another node that's going into the Euler rotation, and then you have a random value going into the rotate by. Aha, it's this. It's distribute points on faces, plugs into the rotation.
Distribute points on faces.
Has a rotation.
Put in the rotation into rotation?
Yeah, rotation to rotation. And then random value should be like 150 or something on the z-axis rotation. And then there you go. Like maybe 90. Yeah, there we go. So, sprinkles. Looks good.
I'm not getting there. Hold on. Oh, no, I guess that kind of works.
Oh, and then you also have an unconnected multiplied density thing here that you're supposed to plug into the density factor. That multiply that's empty, that doesn't go to anything, is supposed to go to the density factor on your distribute
Right.
points.
Okay.
Now we're getting somewhere.
It's still a little bit.
I think I know what we're doing in the next one.
Color them?
Yeah, give them colors.
Are yours really like sitting on top of each other? Look how like...
That is the, you have to make sure that your distribute points is on Poisson disk, and then you make your distance minimum high enough to keep them apart. So that's distance minimum is how many, like how far they need to be away from each other.
We have a set already.
0.12.
0.12.
Yeah, that's what mine's set to. And then you can increase your density.
Okay. Getting there.
Okay. This is interesting.
Yeah, I've got a face like that too.
Is this when you did the weight painting, did you just have this whole section over here painted to not be...
It's entirely possible.
Because if we go to the vertex group, yeah, sprinkles density, and then I go to weight paint here. Yeah. You have this
just
entire...
missed the side,
you
huh?
just missed this, yeah. So...
You know, you can fix yours. I'm gonna leave it on mine.
You're just gonna leave it?
You can picture the donut shop worker just bam, like one side, you know.
Yeah, he just doesn't want to put any more work.
It's a little lopsided. I mean, that's how donuts should be. They're fast and dirty.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, let's get that next bit. Let's go.
All right.
Figure out how to do random colors.
Random colors. All right. Let me know if I need to adjust the volume on Boss Man here.
Controls here if I want to change the density of things later on. Did a good job there, but now we're going to make it look even better. So basically no two sprinkles are the same. You could see that not just the colors are different, but also the shapes of them, right? Because I believe it's actually like piping, so they like pipe out this like hard, like a liquid thing, and then once it's hard, then they like chop it with a knife. So some of them come out like all squiggly, some of them come out straight, but they all look a little bit different. So yeah, let's do that. First of all, though, let's make this look not so sharp, because they end up being like rounded on the edges, right? They kind of look like, I mean, not quite a tic tac, but it's rounded on the edge there. So to do that, I want to use a subsurf modifier, which you may remember we've used a lot, really. So for that, you could go in here and add it as a modifier, but the hotkey, if you want to know that, it's Control 1. That'll add in a subsurf of level 1. Control 2 would do level 2. 3, 4, etc. So I'm just going to go control 1. Whoops. 1. Okay. And also make sure render is just set to 1 because we definitely don't need that much detail for our final render. All right, now it's doing this weird pinching thing, but that makes sense for our mesh because you may remember when we talked about subsurf, it's like the way it works is it takes, 3 vertices like that, in which case this is a right angle, and then it is blending the 2 across it like that. So of course it's going to look very pinched going that way. So what we need to do is add in more detail here. So I'm going to add in a loop cut. Okay, so I don't think we talked about this, but a loop cut is
What's that?
it's basically what this is right here. I want to make one happen here, and to do that I'm going to hit Control
Yeah, I
R.
think so.
Yes.
In fact, let me just turn on my tool so it's actually handy. Control R, there we go. And you'll get this little yellow line that'll appear. So that'll ask you like which part of the mesh do you want to put it on. So I want to put it here, click, and then I want to drag this over to the left hand side and then do another click, and then I'm going to hit Control R again, click, and then drag this over for the other end. And now that looks a lot better. And if I went and hit Shade Smooth, you should see that our sprinkles look a lot nicer now. If you really want, like, you can kind of see, I mean, can you see it? But it looks a little messy in the end there. I mean, if you were really like a narc for like making things look really nice, you would add like an inset here to just clean up that end a little bit better. But look, I mean, that's gonna it's gonna slow down your render, and you've got it for every sprinkle, and it's like, yeah, who cares? So we're just gonna go with that. Okay, cool. So let's add some variants of this. Okay, so we've got single sprinkle. In fact, might as well just rename this over here, sprinkle. And then I'm going to duplicate it with Shift D, and then I'm going to put it right next to it, just on its X axis, like that. Doesn't matter where you put it, by the way. It's just I'm trying to keep it neat. And then looking at reference, you can see that, wow, you got some really long ones. Okay, so let's do that. Let's make, okay, so I'm going to go into wireframe mode so that I can see through it, and then vertex mode, vertex select mode, which you can also do by hitting number 1 on your keyboard, or 2 for the edges, and then 3 for the faces. So 1, 2, or 3. All right, and then I'm going to click over this to box select, and I'm just going to drag this out. And this is going to be a long one. But long ones, when they're long, they kind of get squiggly, I would imagine, maybe. So I'm going to add in one loop cut here, Control R, click, and then I'll just right click, and then I'll just make this bow out a little bit that way, and then this one I'll do this here as well. So it's just, I don't know, it's not perfectly straight, right? And then I'll do this one again, and let's make this one short and fat. Short like that. And by the way, that little point in the middle there, we haven't talked about this before, but every object has an origin point, which is kind of, I guess the way to think of it, like that's where it rotates from, that's where, like the center of it. It's kind of like the center of the mass. So that's actually where it will place it on it. So if I actually wanted it to be rested not in the middle of it across here, but on like the end, so like the sprinkles are kind of perched on top of the surface, I would put it up like that. But I don't. I want them to be half submerged because I think that's how it usually works when it falls in the icing. It becomes half submerged, so it's fine. But I do want it to be sort of in the center. Move that across. Okay. All right, so that's a short, fat one. And now let's make some squiggly ones. So you can see over here, got some long, squiggly, weird looking pieces. So I'm going to duplicate this one. And let's add 2 loop cuts. So you can increase the number of loop cuts once you've got it active and it's asking you where to put it. If you use your scroll wheel, it's now increasing the number of loop cuts. So I'm going to create 2, click, and then right click, and I'll move this over. In fact, I might, okay, I've gone to vertex, what is this? Not solid view, wireframe mode, and then click and drag. And I'm going to turn on proportional editing, and now I'm going to rotate, and then I'll do the same for this side. Haha. Look at us now. It's coming along. And then, I mean, you could keep doing this as many times as you want, but I'll make one more. One more. Like this, duplicate it across. And let's make this one sort of a, I don't know, somewhere in between. It's not straight, but it's not entirely squiggly either. Something like that. They kind of get weird shaped, right? And I'll just change the height of it as well. Or the size of it, the length of it. Something like that. Okay, cool. Now, you may have noticed that this is not reflected on our donut. And that is because we are still referencing the one single sprinkle in our object mode. And obviously you could swap this out for a different sprinkle, but we cannot use more than one object. And that's because this is the wrong node. What we need to use instead is not an object info, but a collection info node, and reference a collection, which will be our sprinkles. So first of all, we need to move our sprinkles to a collection. So I'm going to select them all. Let me just grab a drink here. There we go. Now I'm going to move it to a new collection by hitting.
Okay. Just doing this. I'm going to add a collection. I'm going to do this. Put it in the collection. Call it sprinkles.
Okay, sorry. So he did. Has he done that yet? He's doing the collection?
Yeah. Oh my god.
Sprinkles.
This is so whack.
What's up? Whoa. Sick.
It's like an umbrella.
It's like a...
Sprinkle fountain.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the fact that I don't have like the sprinkles. Like, I don't know. There's probably some way of separating them.
Added my... Wow. The sprinkle dome. The impenetrable...
No one will ever get through this.
Okay. Let's see what Blender Word has to say about...
You just give us your wisdom.
M for move. You could also do it over here, M, and then hit new collection, and I'm going to type in sprinkles, and then okay. Okay, so they're now all moved into here. So now if I was to take my collection here, and just like before, click and drag this over to here, you can see it's now added in a collection info node with our new sprinkles selected. And by the way, I mentioned it briefly at the start, but a collection is it's like a folder. It's like a bucket. It's just a way to organize things. You could put, your camera, your lights in here and create another collection and put your donut in it, etc., etc. But in this case, yeah, it helps us because we're going to reference it over here. So now I'm going to take this and put this, of course, into our instance. Aha, what happened? So that's not what we intended. Basically, for something like this, we need to, first of all, make sure that pick instance is enabled for our instances on points. That will actually reference, not load in each one as individual, like unique data things. It'll just make it a lot faster to render. So make sure pick instance is enabled, and then separate children so that we're not referencing all 5 of the sprinkles on each point, but just one of them, and then reset children so that it then uses it, like basically it applies it to here, not based on the distance from there to there, basically. Anyway, you just basically need to check those 3 things. Pick instance, reset children, separate children. And there we go. That looks pretty good. It's the first time I've actually used this like really long one, and I don't know if I like it because it's introducing a lot of clipping. So I've changed my mind, but that's okay. You can change your mind because it's 3D. If we painted this in 2D, we would have some trouble. There we go, that's better. Okay, I'm happy with that. Cool, now if we went to back to our rendered mode here, you can see we've got some white Tic Tacs coming all over our donut. So of course, we could add a new material. We could just make this one, orange. We could make this one, or one like this. We can make this one blue, and that does the job. Unfortunately, though, you'll see that every time now this squiggly one here is referenced as an example, it's now a blue one. So that will kind of look repetitive to your eye, because the eye will notice that all of these squiggly ones look blue, and then all of the straight ones look orange, and then all of the blah, blah, blah. That's not what we want. We want to assign a unique color irregardless of which one of these objects it is. So let's delete that material. Let's keep this one. I'm going to call this one sprinkles. And I'm going to make all of these objects share this one material. You could do it one by coming over here and then clicking sprinkles like that and selecting it from the list. Or, much faster way, select all the objects you want to have as the new material, then select the object you want to copy the material from last, then hit Control L for link, and then hit link materials. And now they are all using the exact same material. Aha. Okay, now it might not look like what we want, but let's go to the shading tab. We're going to do something
Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Hold your horses, buddy. Alright, so select everything and select the one that you want to do from, then you do Control L and then link materials, and that does it. Okay, cool. Interesting.
Neat.
Neat indeed.
You'll see that every time now, this squiggly one here, and then all of the blah, blah, blah. That's not what we want. We want to assign a unique color.
Asks, is it the same basic process? Oh, how does this work when you start animating things?
It depends on what you mean by animation.
Yeah.
Because there's, like, you'll see, like, a lot of visualizations and stuff that use geometry nodes, and that's mostly just taking the value and moving it on a slider over time, you know.
Yeah.
Interpolate from, like, 5 to 20, you know, where you move, like, up one from, like, you know, one value every second. And that'll, like, move the camera and, like, grow something. But if you are trying to do animation that's not, you know, it's more natural or something, it needs a more, like, you know, human touch to it, so it can take a while to just play around with it. But animation is probably, it's like its own beast. Geometry nodes has its place, but if you're doing what I would call traditional animation and not procedural animation, then yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think it depends on what you're trying to animate. If you're animating like characters walking,
Yeah.
then, you know, a lot of that is keyframing stuff and just moving it to where you want it to go, and then keyframing the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, even if you are doing food, right, like a burger from like a, I don't know, like a burger shop commercial, right, they do the thing where it like falls onto the plate.
Mm-hmm.
Like that could honestly use like a human touch to it, or like, I mean, it would be, you could do it with a physics simulation, but it would just probably be more appealing, because that's one of like the things with animation is one of the principles is appeal. So you want whatever you're animating to just like look fun and bouncy and cool.
What do you mean by human touch?
Just like, you know, whenever you it's not like, have you ever seen like AI generated art?
Yeah.
It just kind of like throws stuff at the wall.
Yeah.
The human touch sort of like, you know, has direction. It has every action and movement has a purpose because someone sat there for frame by frame and made that.
So more involved decision making as opposed to like doing it with math.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Good question. Who's asking about it? I know NCSU Libraries was like clarifying that question, but who asked the original question?
Also NCSU Libraries. How does this work when you start animating things and then a minute later, is it the same basic process?
Oh, yeah.
Irregardless of which one of these objects it is. So let's delete that material. Let's keep this one. I'm going to call this one sprinkles. And I'm going to make all of these objects share this one material. You could do it one by coming over here and then clicking sprinkles like that and selecting it from the list. Or, much faster way, select all the objects you want to have as the new material, then select the object you want to copy the material from last, then hit Control L for link, and then hit link materials. And now they are all using the exact same material. Aha. Okay, now it might not look like what we want, but let's go to the shading tab and we're going to do something fancy. Okay, so obviously these are now all one solid color, not what we want. What we want to do is in here, base color, we want to add something that will randomize the color dependent on what object it is. Like every time the object is referenced, pick a new thing. So the way we can do this is with a object info node. And again, this is one of those things, is like, how would you know this is the one? Because in like geometry nodes, there was a random value node. It's just one of those things you just have to learn, I guess. But in shading, you use the object info node and then you take the random one at the bottom there. Okay, so I guess it's because it's object data and it's using random object data depending on the object. So I guess it does kind of make sense. Then if I take that and I put that into my base color, what this is doing now is it is referencing between 0 and 1. When it is 0, it is saying it is black. When it is 1, it is saying it is white. And obviously all these other gray values is anywhere in between that. So each one of these has its own unique color. But very depressing looking colors. It's not, no kid's gonna pick that one at the donut shop. One more sec. Yeah, you could make it look really sad, couldn't you? It's like, wah, wah, wah. Do you wanna have the world's saddest donut, Johnny? Come on.
Yeah, honestly, if you
Anyway,
like changed it to like the like grayscale,
what we can do
and make,
instead,
like, a noir donut.
Oh, yeah.
as I mentioned before, there is a node that we use a lot, and that is Shift A, Converter, Color Ramp. Now, if I put this in between here, it's still using the 0 to 1, but it's now converting it through a color ramp. So everything that is on the 0 end of the scale will get this color. Everything that is on the the 1 end of the scale will get this color. Okay. So instead, I could make these colors anything I want. I can make this one red. I can make this one, blue, something like that. And look at that. Haha. We have something interesting. So already we've got really nice looking colors. But you can see that, some of these ones, like the difference in color between this one, and this one, they're similar, but they're all slightly different. And of course, that is because it's using an independent value somewhere in this gradient. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. And that's not how sprinkles are made. Sprinkle values are constant. It is either orange or it is white. It is not somewhere a blend between orange and white because, as I said before, it is piped royal icing, generally speaking. I think it is. My wife does cookies. But royal icing, and then it's hardened, and then you do like another line of a different color. So you have to like mix it in like food dye and then do it out. Basically, it's one constant color. So instead of linear, if we change the color ramp gradient type to be constant, there will then be no gradient. Okay, it's just basically one of these values. It's either blue or it is either red, and that is what we want. So now, if I was to add another value just by hitting the plus button, I could add new colors. And this is where it's really fun. You can finally have fun. You can be creative with your donut. I feel like I'm losing my voice in the middle of this tutorial. Muscle through it. All right, let's make this one a purple color. By the way, here's a pro tip. Don't use 100% saturation, ever. Generally, like 0.8 is really all you ever need. So somewhere around that. And let's make this one 0.8, somewhere, something about that. And then let's make this one yellow. And this is, you can have fun with it, right? I'm going to go for a color scheme, which is, let's go sort of a pink color. That's looking nice.
Okay,
and then you can go with like a white color as the final one. And you can see that the great thing about this one is I can now control how many colors of each that I get. Like if I think there's too many purple ones, I could, increase it and make it like now there's more blue. Or I could go like this way and make like there's more pink ones, or there's more yellow ones, or there's more white ones. So you can have creative control of it. And in fact, this is actually recommended like as a sort of an art rule. You never want to go like when you're using colors, you don't want to use the same amount of each color. You actually want to use like, I actually got a video on color schemes. If you want to watch it, you can click up there and watch it. But yeah, it explains, if you're going to use like a complementary color scheme or something like that, you don't go like, purple that goes with the yellow and you use like 50-50 of each. It looks nasty. You want to go like 90% of one color and then 10% of another. So anyways, something fun there. Yeah. I mean, guys, that's going to do it for this really, the style and visual look of your donut. It's all here. So if you want to make it your own, now is your chance. Like you could change it and make it like a chocolate donut, right? By the way, I didn't explain this, but you can like click and drag any color from one to another and it'll like copy it. which is cool. You could make it like a Halloween donut that's like red and I don't know, spooky. Oh, that looks like a yeah, it kind of looks like a 4th of July donut or something. I see a lot of 4th of July decoration. I want to go to a 4th of July party one day. I've been to America a few times. I don't think I've been there during 4th of July. Looks like it'd be fun. Eating a lot of sugary foods and hanging out, having a barbecue, setting off fireworks. We don't have fireworks here in Australia. They're illegal, along with many other things. We can't even have gel blasters. Our government's like, no. We're going to side with Syria, North Korea, and Kuwait by also banning gel blasters. And Singapore as well. All right, so we're in there with Singapore, but it's like, can't be trusted with anything.
Maybe gel blasters
Don't let us have anything.
I don't know.
But anyways. But yeah, have some fun with it, guys. This is your chance to make it your own before we start animating it and doing stuff. There was a guy on Twitter who was actually like, he was like mad that I was making another donut tutorial, and he was like, "Are you actually going to encourage people this time to make the donut their own? I'm sick of seeing all these pink donuts." I was just laughing. Because I like that, like, someone out there, like, that's how they start their day. You know, they just, like, open up Twitter and they're just seeing pink donuts. And they're like, "Oh, I said no more pink donuts." So, you know, first of all, he didn't watch the last one, obviously, because it was the same instruction. I said, like, make it your own. Have some fun, you know.
Well, open up your,
but, you know, that's Twitter.
Your color thing.
Oh, and one final thing I forgot. The baubles.
Whoa,
baubles, that's for a Christmas tree. But the balls, like because something I really like that I saw on Pinterest was this one. I like the way that the balls sort of break up the, I don't know, just the repetitiveness of the sprinkles. So I did it for the last tutorial. I'll do it here as well.
Sprinkles glow too.
And as you can imagine, it is, you know, you add a sphere.
This is like super bright. I need to turn it down some. There we go. Blow a nut, blow a nut.
See if I add like a texture, like a.
Trying to add a texture to your donut or your sprinkles?
I'm gonna use a texture to control the emission string.
Oh, interesting. Are you gonna use what, Musgrave?
Well, you know, it didn't do what I thought it was gonna do. I thought it was gonna change. See, now I just get this weird texture on them. I didn't want that. I wanted it to control randomly how much each individual object.
Well, it is. I think you just need to clamp it to be higher because some of them are giving it like a negative or 0 value for emission, which would be black. So you just need to clamp it so that the minimum is 1.
How do you do that?
There's a clamp node. Do 1 and maybe like, I don't know, like 10 or something. And then you just increase the scale of the Musgrave texture. You want to multiply whatever is in your Musgrave texture first by like 10. So math, I multiply this by 10, whatever value it is, plug that value in there, and the Musgrave texture, yeah, there you go. Now they're like little sparkly donuts.
I'm confused as to why that worked.
Huh? So okay, so the Musgrave texture is basically a noise texture with
Yeah.
black and white values. That's
Yeah.
0 to 1. Your emission strength, if it's less than 1, it's going to give you that like darker, like unlit version.
Right.
Because then,
Yeah.
if you're not like emitting fully, if emission is 0, it's going to be black. What I'm doing is I'm multiplying my emission strength by 10. So basically, the Musgrave texture will be on a range from 0 to 10 instead of just 0 to 1. And then I'm clamping that so that the least amount of, like even in the darkest, blackest spot of the Musgrave texture, which I can plug this texture into the, I mean, you guys can kind of see where it is. Like there's like these little bits of black white here, but that's 1 still. It's not 0.
Yeah.
Right there.
So what I was hoping for was that I could make sort of in the way, maybe you have to use the object info to do it, but so I could make like, okay, this one right here is glowing stronger than this one.
Oh, so each.
So you go based on object, not based on just the location of the texture.
You could do a random object info color ramp, and then just have different variables of white to black, and then do a multiply just like this, like delete this, make a new color ramp. Make sure you leave it as black and white. And then set it to constant, and then add like a couple different gray values in there. I'll just do 3. And then I will plug that in, multiply it by 10, and then, yeah. So now, yeah, some of them are brighter than the other ones are, and it's dependent on the object. So take random into a color ramp.
Constant, add a couple.
Yeah, and make sure they're black and white.
Okay, and then you multiplied?
Multiply it by whatever number. I think I have it set to 10. I might actually reduce that to like 5 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Alright. Getting rid of the Doughnuts.
Yeah.
Alright, should we go next video?
I think so. Alright, we're ready. Do a little extra stuff
So let's
there.
go Shift A,
Yeah,
sphere, UV sphere. There's icosphere, which is used occasionally when you feel like it. I don't know. You'll get the hang of it, but usually you want a
this
UV
is
sphere.
because he's adding
And it's
little
ginormous
balls
by
to
default,
the
so let's just
sprinkles.
scale that in. You could also do it, when you add in the sphere, but
So it's like a little
you know,
malt ball or something.
I usually
Instead
forget.
of just-
Okay, scale it in, and then we haven't cleared the scale. So if I was to clear the scale, there we go. Now we can actually see them on our donut. They were there. They were just so big when they were out there. You can see 3 or 4 on the whole donut. So I say just move it out of the sprinkles color. But go ahead, click here, and we are.
Animation.
Students with ADHD save 10 hours studying with this Chrome extension. But no, by all means, go ahead, skip the ad, save a few seconds.
I have to do a lot of reading for my job,
To make better renders, you often need better assets, which is why I created Polygon, a library of models, textures, and HDRs that work in any 3D software. Finished and looking the way we want it, we can now start animating it. So you might remember from the first part, this is the animation that we are going for. We want to have it slowly rotate and then pick up speed and do a quick spin and then go back to the start. So it's an opportunity to learn about keyframing, essentially. So first, let's delete the plane because we no longer need that. That was just so that we could play with lighting and see how it looks. We're going to have it operate just in a suspended in midair. So first of all, let's move our camera to be sort of front on to it like this. Okay, so there's a couple of ways you could you could move it, position it, like this. It's a little bit fiddly, and then you'd have to like zero out these. I find it easiest if I want it to be like exactly front onto something. Go to the front view, number pad 1, or by clicking up there. Then go to view, align active camera to view, or the hotkey Control Alt number pad 0. And you can see that we are now, it has snapped our camera to the exact location that we were at, which was front view. So now you should see that our camera, assuming our camera is selected, it should show 90 degrees 0, 0. Okay, lovely. Cool. So now let's rotate our camera, our donut, to position our camera. So if we were to rotate this, you can see that's, these objects are just moving independently of themselves because there is nothing that we've told Blender to say that this should be attached to this. And I've got this set to the wrong way. You could, if you wanted to, like rotate them all like this, but then they've each got their own individual like rotation amounts, and it would just be a nightmare to animate with. So instead, let's tell Blender that these are all linked. So I'm going to select my icing, okay, and then I'm going to select last, holding down Shift, the object which is going to be the parent, the one that it's sort of based on. So that's my base. So icing, then Shift select the base, and then I'm going to hit Control P for parent. Okay, and there's a bunch of options here. Normally the ones you want is either that one or this one, depending on if you hit object and then it just like moves around. It usually means like your rotation or your scale was not applied. But if it is applied, then object should work, but otherwise keep transform. Okay, so now that that's done, I can select my donut and the icing will move it with it, and I can select my icing and the donut underneath it will stay stationary. But you can see that there's a dotted line that connects between that and the base, just to show that it is parented to that thing.
Wait,
okay.
Did he add a...
So, now I need to do the same for these balls.
Did he add armature, or did he just do a parent?
He just did a parent.
Okay, so he just parented the icing to the donut.
Yes.
Control P. Keep transform?
He just did object.
Okay.
It should work, but keep transform if you like scaled something that didn't apply it.
And it was, which one did you want to have selected? As
So if you click the icing, then click the donut,
yeah. And
then it'll parent the icing to the donut.
Cool. So now if I move the donut, moves everything. Oh, move the donut, moves everything, but I can move the icing independently.
Right.
Sweet.
And he deleted his plane. I don't know if you
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. Why not?
Balls, because that was not part of the geometry nodes. So select the balls, holding down Shift, and then, you could parent it to the base, but it actually make more sense to parent it to the icing. So Control P, object. Because that means that if for whatever reason I wanted to move the icing, like I don't know if it was in the wrong place slightly, or I wanted to move it up a little bit, I wouldn't have to reposition these balls. So it's called object hierarchy or parent hierarchy. So when you've got like a mech or a robot or something, you might have like lots of elements, like a costume and some plate of armor, and then like a hat. And you want to have the hat that's like parented to the plate of armor, and then the plate of armor that's parented to the mesh, and then the mesh that's parented to the... So then when you move things, it actually makes sense, and you don't have to like think and go, oh, this should be parent, So anyways, that's just a long way of showing you how to do parenting. Okay, so looking through my camera view with number pad 0, or just by clicking the little camera icon, I want to rotate my donut. So I want to rotate it towards me, so that would be the x-axis, like this. I can also just, up here, in your properties, just increase the angle amount, and we're going to go for something around about like 60, let's go 60. Okay, 60 degrees. Okay, and now if I was to rotate this, that looks pretty good. Haha, nice. Okay, now you can see that we are in widescreen mode. And you can see that might be good if you were rendering a Blu-ray of a donut spinning or a movie or something like that. It makes sense that that's the default. But we're going to commit a sin. We're going to use vertical mode. Shock and horror. It's kind of funny that remember like when vertical video started, like people started recording video in vertical mode, there was like this huge pushback against vertical video. Like everyone hated it. And now, because of TikTok and Instagram and...
the output
what else? YouTube Shorts, like vertical is its own format now, because a lot of people now watch video on their phone in vertical mode, so it doesn't really matter that it's vertical. But anyway, it's just kind of funny that we've all just like forgotten that we used to hate vertical video. Some people I'm sure still hate it, but whatever. Okay, so we could change from widescreen mode to anything else by changing the resolution of our output up here. So the camera resolution is defined by your output for when you actually render here. So if I was to adjust this, you can see that I'm changing the aspect ratio of my camera. I could go ultra widescreen. All right, so what I'm going to go for is 1080, because that's what that one is now. And then if I made this 1920, that would be an exact, is it exact? Depends on the phone, but a vertical mode. I don't necessarily want completely vertical mode. I'm going to go 1440, which is a, I don't know, semi-squarish looking one, because I find that if you make it just like 1920, then you end up with a lot of empty space up here and a lot of empty space down there. I don't want to go for that entirely. Okay, and the next thing to decide is your focal length of your camera. So just to make this a little easier to understand, I'm just going to quickly add in, hey, let's add in a monkey, just so that we know what we're talking about here. When you're working with a scene and you've got, you know, lots going on, but we don't in this case, but we've got a donut which is going to be spinning, so things will look different depending on where we are. We could, for example, change how it looks to the camera by changing the focal length. So if I went for a really wide focal length, like let's say like 24 millimeters or something, now when I bring this in like this, you can see that this, I mean, actually maybe it would make more sense if I just rotate this a little bit towards the way that it was before. Now you can see it's almost like that skater cam, like a fisheye lens kind of thing. So the things that are closest to the camera look like really distorted, like they're kind of like wide. And then the things that are not that far behind it look a lot further away. It can look like distorted, but depending on what you're going for, it might actually look good for what you want. And you can see that I actually have clipping that's happening pretty severely. And that's because my clipping amount is too high for the start. So I'll just add a 0 in front of it, and now I can move the camera much closer. Okay, so that is one look, right? Now the alternative is you could have the camera really far away, and then you could use a large focal length. And now you can see that it's kind of flattened out, right? Like it's hard to actually tell, like without lighting, let's say, with all these here, like where the objects are in relation to each other, right? Like this monkey is much further forward than this one behind it, but because we're so far away, you can't see the depth. So when you're thinking of a focal length, just think a high focal length means I'm going to flatten it. I'm going to compress the depth so that basically things just look really, really flat. Like I could go really flat, move the camera even further away. And now all those monkeys basically look the same height, even though they're the same distance, although they're much, much further away from each other. And then if you want to exaggerate it and make things, yeah, like a fisheye lens, like a skater cam kind of thing, you would use a smaller one, right? You just have to move the camera once you've changed it, obviously, because it now has to be closer to fill the frame. In this case, I'm going to make it something in between. I'm just going to make it a 40. So the default is 50, but as it rotates around, I want to kind of add, there's a little bit of depth to it, right? So I'm going with a 40 focal length. Delete these monkeys because I no longer need them. I don't know if it was even helpful for the demonstration, but whatever. All right, and now let's move my camera. By the way, here's a little tip. If you want to see, you know, what is the center of your frame, with your camera selected, if you go to composition guides, and then there's one here for center, you can see I now get like a little crosshair in the middle there. You can also use like rule of thirds, if you want to see the rule of thirds, which wouldn't make sense for something where you've just got one single object, just keep it in the center. Diagonal, I don't know, who uses diagonal? Look at that, it's a real crosshair now. Anyways, okay, so now I'm gonna move my camera in a little closer. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then I'll just rotate this back to what it was before, which was around about 60. Okay, lovely. So with lighting, I mean, look, we're going to do the lighting later on. We're just going to look in solid view and do some animation. Okay. So animation and playback can actually be done anywhere. So we're in layout mode, we've got 3D view. We could play our animation. So down here, this is the timeline, which we haven't really talked about yet. But you can see we've got a timeline, which I can click up here click on that little black part, and then you can click and drag across frames, and you can hit spacebar to play your animation. And nothing is happening because obviously we haven't got any keyframes, any motion yet. But you can see we are playing back an animation. Now, a quick point about playback. Okay, so playback is defined by your frames per second, because these are frames here. You can see it's not seconds, it is frames. So if you go to your output settings here, you can see your frame rate. So if I wanted a 10-second animation at 24 frames per second, that means I would need 240 frames. So you can see the start and end frames here. That is the number of frames in your animation. So if you were to hit render animation, it would render all the frames from 100 to 250. So if I wanted 10 seconds, I would set that to 240. The playback speed, this is a, the frame rate that you choose. I mean, it's a it's almost like a religious war. You remember when The Hobbit came out? They came out with 48 frames a second, which is double the standard for cinema, which is 24. Some people loved it, some people hated it. 24 used to be sort of the standard. Then like a lot of camcorders and stuff came out at like TV was 30 or 29.97. That's a whole other thing. They the American market added in color, and then they had to find a way to fit that into these cathode CRT things. Very crazy, but sort of like 30. And then there's like now 60. YouTube is now, you can show 60 frames a second. So again, some people love that, some people hate it. My final donut animation, I actually used 60 frames a second, because I find for like animations, it kind of makes it feel like larger than life. Like it's kind of like, whoa, like hyper real. It's kind of like popping out of the screen. Only downside to that is you need to render twice as many frames as 30 frames a second. So I wouldn't actually necessarily recommend it. So we're going to use 30 frames a second, which is sort of standard for what you would get on a phone or a camcorder or anything like that today. Camcorder feels so old school to say camcorder, but a camera, DSLR or anything, it's usually around about 30. So we're going to go 30. So if we were to, if we wanted to do an animation, we could do it anyway. So we could put our timeline, a little slider thing back on frame 1, and then if I want to add a keyframe for my donut here, I could hit I. So that is I for insert keyframe, which is not the most obvious keyframe choice. It could be K, that would make more sense to me, but it's I. And then you could say what sort of keyframe are you using it for? Are you doing it for the location, the scale, or the rotation? I've never used any of these, to be honest. The one I'm looking for is, in this case, I'm just going to say location. I'm just doing this to show you something. Okay, so if I wanted, let's say 3 seconds of animation, I'm at 30 frames a second. 3 times 30 would be 90 frames. So I would then move to where I want the action to end, and then I would move my object to that point, and then say I again, and then say location. Then if I went back to the start here, which you can do by hitting shift left arrow, and then hit spacebar, you can see that we are playing back. Haha, lovely. So 30 frames a second. If we were to count this and go, okay, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, what's happening? Why is this not playing back at 30 frames a second? That is because Blender is trying to show you everything on your screen. And we've actually got quite a lot of complex detail here. You can see in the top left-hand corner, we've got frames per second, and it's lighting up as red to show you that there is actually frames that it's not playing back at its true speed. It can only render on my screen 12 frames a second. You might be able to get this down if you were to like turn off your subdivisions and like make things a little bit lighter. Oh, I can actually. So it was just that. It was that. But if I did want to keep that, and I had a lot going on in my scene, which you often do, if you want to play something back at its true speed, and not have to go through and like change everything in your scene, you would just go to playback and then say sync, play every frame to frame dropping. So now it will play it back at its proper speed, even though it'll start skipping frames in order to meet the requirements of playing back at 30 frames per second. So there you go, a little bit about playback and how that all works. Something else you might want if you are new to animation and frames don't really make sense, you want to use seconds. You can also say view, show seconds, or just hit Control T whilst your mouse is over here, and then you can see it's showing you actual seconds. You can go like, okay, I want 3 seconds of animation. I can get it to 3 seconds, right? But generally, you just want to render with show your frame count. I don't know. I find it easier to work with in seconds. Anyways, okay, cool. So we want to have a donut that spins around. So first of all, I'm going to position my donut to be where I want because I'm going to make this loop, which introduces some complications. But hey, that's what the tutorial is for. Make it interesting. So it's going to start at frame 1. And it's going to be about this point. So this is where the video is going to start. It's where the donut is sort of looking interesting. So I'll be at about there. And then I'm going to hit I and then say insert location at rotation. Okay, then I'm going to go up to, we're going to make it spin fast at the end to do like a really quick spin. And I'm going to do that around about here to 10 is where it's going to start to speed up. So this is where sort of the, what's interesting to the donut has stopped showing. And then it starts to show the back of it, right? So I don't want to show like a slow pan around the back. I want it to like speed up from this point. So now I'm going to hit I again and hit rotation. Okay, so now we play that back. Go from here to there. So is it doing frame dropping? Yes, it is. Okay, so this is the true playback speed. Okay, I also want it to be 10 seconds of animation,
So
30 frames. That means I want it.
I don't think he's done that yet, but I just set mine at the end to 720.
No, not the Z rotation, your X rotation.
Oh, my X rotation is at 55.
That's what it is. I had it at 45.
Yeah.
Alright. I think I'm all good.
Cool.
I'm going to change my end frame count, which you can do there or over here. Set that to 300. Also, if you just want to, instead of having to scroll in and out here to see all your frames, if you just say home whilst your cursor is over here, same as if you want to see your entire scene, it's home. Then it'll should... Actually, did it show me all the frames? That's odd. I've never seen that before. Okay. Usually, when you say home, it shows you the exact timeline view of everything, but in this case it didn't. Oh, maybe it's because of the keyframes. Maybe if I don't select keyframes. Anyway, I think Blender's changed that. I think it used to always show the timeline. Small thing, doesn't matter. All right, let's move along. Now, in this part, I want to do like a spin. And actually, you can see at the start here, it moves really slowly, then it moves fast in the middle, and then it starts to slow down again. So this is because these keyframes that it has added is a Bezier keyframe. So it's trying to blend into the next one, and because there's nothing here, it's just starting slowly and then ending slowly. So to see all this, it is better visualized in the animation workflow up here. Workspace is what it's called. All right, so it's got a 3D view over here and another one over here. I prefer to actually make this graph editor. So graph editor will show you the keyframes, but with the Bezier curve information to show you where it's slowing down and speeding up. So to move around here, I'm holding down Control and then middle mouse button, and it allows me, if I move it all the way up to the right, I can sort of zoom in, and then to the left, I can sort of pinch it's sort of zooming out on the keyframes, and then I can go down and it's just actually a really easy way to quickly see things. And then you can just say home if you want to see everything. That's probably easiest, just hit home. Okay, now we're actually only animating on our Z axes, but when you add a keyframe for the rotations, you're also doing it for the X and the Y, and we don't actually need that. So I'm going to delete those. So with my mouse over these, I'm going to hit X and then this one as well. So we've just got the Z rotation. Okay, so we can see that it is, that's how it's happening. Okay, great. Let's complete our animation before we start cleaning. Curve information to show you where it's slowing down and speeding up. So to move around here, I'm holding down Control and then middle mouse button, and it allows me, if I move it all the way up to the right, I can sort of zoom in, and then to the left, I can sort of pinch it's sort of zooming out on the keyframes, and then I can go down and it's just actually a really easy way to quickly see things. And then you can just say home if you want to see everything. That's probably easiest, just hit home. Okay, Now, we're actually only animating on our Z axes, but when you add a keyframe for the rotations, you're also doing it for the X and the Y, and we don't actually need that. So I'm going to delete those. So with my mouse over these, I'm going to hit X and then this one as well. So we've just got the Z rotation. Okay, so we can see that it is, that's how it's happening. Okay, great. Let's complete our animation before we start cleaning up this. So I want it to go to here, and then this is where I want it to start speeding up and do like an extra spin, an extra 2 spins, in fact. So let's go up to, okay, so this is the degrees on the left-hand side, and then this is the keyframes on the up top right. Oh, and by the way, I didn't even explain what this is down here. This is your, what is it, action sheet? Is that what it's called? Dope sheet. Dope sheet. Sounds like what you'd get for a criminal possession of drugs. Dope sheet. Okay. I thought it was called action sheet, but anyways, it's just like simple beat, like little dots, like keyframes, like what we had before on the timeline. But this one up here, your graph editor will show you the actual motion of where it's blending in between keyframes. So I generally like to work with the graph editor. Okay, so I want it to do, let's do another rotation from here. So I'm going to, I mean, I could try to like rotate it up here, but it's actually easier to work. I find it easier to work like this. So I'm going to take, I'm going to add another keyframe up here by hitting Control and then just left clicking. Did that not work? Right clicking, sorry. Okay, it's Control and right click. That'll add another keyframe where you've got your cursor. So I could go like this and add keyframes everywhere if I want to. Okay, so I want it to basically speed up here. It's done 1 revolution. I actually want it to do 2 revolutions. So I want it to move up again to around about here. Now lining this up would actually be very difficult. It is very difficult. So we've got something that's starting at minus rotation, and then it's going up to here, and I want this to loop, right? So I want it to end at the exact point where it should join with the previous one. So I can actually find out the exact degree rotation for this by selecting a keyframe and then hitting N in my properties to bring up this. So here I can see the value of this. So this is starting at the start of my animation. It is starting its rotation at minus 34.5 degrees. So let's just make that an easy number. Let's go minus 30, okay? Something a little easier to start. Yeah, let's go minus 40. Minus 40, so it starts where it's a little bit, do we want it minus 50? Yeah, let's go minus 50. Why not? Let's go minus 50, okay. And then up here, so how do I calculate? So how many revolutions, minus 50 to 2 revolutions, we can do some math. Okay, everybody loves math. It's exciting. I hated math in high school. My dad's actually like a maths professor. He had did his thesis on maths and science. I was just so disappointed that I failed. Almost failed at math and science. Anyways, math. Okay, let's do some math. So we wanted to do from minus 50, we wanted to do 2 revolutions. Okay, so we would type in here in this value 360 for 1 revolution plus 360 for a 2nd revolution minus its original start at 50, which brings us to 670 degrees. So then the keyframe value here, because we just sort of like arbitrarily like dropped it wherever our cursor was. I want to set.
Yeah, I don't see how he has this active F curve thing up, and I have everything else, it seems.
If you expand your sidebar on the right to get the transform bar.
I have the transform. Maybe I need to hit N here. Oh, okay. And then I click this active F curve. All right, and then active keyframe. This one, and then that has its own keyframe value. Okay, I got you. I'm with them now.
Yeah, I'm doing it the lazy way and just doing everything directly in this sidebar. I think that's fine.
Where's he ending at? 210? Looks like 210. Ugh. I don't even know what else we have after this for this tutorial series.
I think this is pretty much where we finish.
Yeah, I mean, there's 17 videos, so there's 6 more, but I don't know what they're on. Alright, this is just gonna get put on 210 because I can't read. I just hope. If it does 2 rotations and not just 1 rotation, it needs to do another 80, which would be 260 degrees. No, 360 is a 4 rotation. So
I
if
don't
we're
know, mine's spinning like 40 times right now. I think it's great.
that's awesome.
Okay. Should we keep going, or do you?
Let me do my little bit of math in my head.
Okay.
360, 720 minus 50 is what?
720 minus 50 is
670. 670. That's what it is. All right. I'm ready.
Okay.
Set this to be, you could set it to 300, but actually, because we want it to loop, it would actually make sense for it to start off the timeline, which would be 301. 301 frames. So if we played this back now, it should be framed. Okay, so we got to stop the slow speed up at the start. We'll get to that, but let's just see how this looks. It should spin twice, and now it's back at the start. Aha! So our plan has worked. There is no like jutting cut where it stops at the start. Sorry, I don't know, it jumps from when it goes to the end to the start, basically. It is actually the same frame, which is exactly what we wanted.
Okay.
But we want to fix this this speed issue. So it starts, basically, it's stationary because its movement is so slow because of this Bezier handle here. So what I want to do is I want to make it like from here in the timeline. Can I do a? No, I can't do a. I was trying to do an annotation. You can't do an annotation in the dope sheet, apparently. From here in the timeline to here, I want to make the motion look basically constant. So I'm going to grab this Bezier handle here, and I'm just going to scale in. So scale it all the way in. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, but not for this entire point, because I want this part to actually do smooth. Just this handle. I'm going to scale that almost all the way in as well. Okay, so now if I play it, it should be basically constant from here to here. You could change the handle to a vector or something like that. I'm just going to keep it like that. That's fine for me. Okay, then I want this. Let's actually move this down so that it's actually the same. Because if I go like this, you can see that there'll be like a jump from that amount of rotation to like the next bit. You can see like there's a bit of a jump there. So I want this handle to be basically in line with this blue line over there. And I'm dragging that over there so that there is now like a slow build up to the next part. Haha, that's starting to look good. So it's a slow build up. Okay, and then it starts to speed up. It's faster, faster. There we go. So it's basically almost like a vertical bit here. In fact, I could just rotate this, because then this will actually, like, rather than it going back all the way to 0 in terms of rotation, it should actually be keeping with basically this line. Like if you drew a line across there, we should try to get that same line here with this handle, roughly.
Gosh, where did you get...
okay, something like that. And I might just scale that out a little.
The thing? Shit. Frame rate. Where is that at?
Oh, that's going to be on... you're out... No, it's on your...
No, I see it now. Okay, I found it. Yeah. 30 frames per second. Cool. Thank you.
I'm also going to make mine like flip on the y-axis or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
I'll do like a rotate and then do like a burger flip. It's pretty sweet, yeah. Probably have to set it to be like not tilted up like this though. Yeah, this part is where things kind of slow down because, like, animation, especially if you want to do like something more complicated than just rotating it, it takes a lot of
Oh yeah, for sure.
just messing around with it and figuring out how you want to go about things. So this needs to be set over to 300. And head shift.
And then we only got like 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
We're also almost done with this. Should we keep playing now?
Yeah, just go for it.
A little bit. And then I'll take this and I'll scale this one out a little bit. So it's like, where do you want the motion? Do you want it to be like here, or do you want it mostly here? Ah, there we go. That's pretty good, actually. I like that. Just playing it back. It's pretty cool. This was actually to decide this animation because I'm creating some donuts for an NFT project. I'll show you at the end what some of them look like. But yeah, this idea, because we're like trying to like figure out like, okay, what's the best way to make it spin? Because if you have it just like constantly spinning, it's really boring when it gets to the back part of the donut. And so yeah, I was like working with a contractor to like figure out, you know, how should it actually look? And he came up with this idea where it starts to speed up at the end of it and then does this like revolution. And I thought like, that's really cool. And then we made it so like some bits like fly off the donut as well. That's kind of an extra thing. But anyways, that is pretty good. So that is the basics of animation. So we are going to get into rendering later on. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. So go ahead, click here on the screen and I'll animating it. So you might remember from the first part, this is the animation that we are going for. Starts to speed up at the end of it and then does this like revolution. And I thought like, that's really cool. And then we made it so like some bits like fly off the donut as well. That's kind of an extra thing. So that is the basics of animation. So we are going to get into rendering later on. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video.
Friends would walk up to me and just be like, what the f is in your mug? And I would just tell them,
We are going to make our spinning donut.
Alright.
Alright, he's just gonna render it now, I think.
Yeah, which should be able to take care of. There's probably a little bit of extra stuff to learn about rendering and compositing.
Yeah.
But at the moment we're just trying to get our animations made.
Yeah, sure. I feel pretty much.
I think we got
at
it.
this point.
For anyone getting into Blender, I mean, most of the time, this is, if you can get this far, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
There's definitely some more stuff to learn, and hopefully, because we're not doing everything, it'll encourage you to go watch the tutorial yourself and make your own donut. See how it all ends.
Mm-hmm.
Share it with us somehow. I don't know if we have like a page.
Yeah, you could tag the like NCSU libraries, or I think DHL has
Live stream
an
one,
Instagram,
maybe. Yeah.
or Twitch. Just tag everything having to do with any NCSU, and we'll find.
Yeah. We'll find your donuts. Maybe we'll do another stream where we rate people's donuts if they send them in.
Yes, I would love to do a rating donuts. I think so next steps that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keyframe some of this emission strength. So that this changes.
So it gets brighter as it goes.
So it gets maybe it kind of like wah wah wah.
Yeah.
Like does a little bit of that.
Yeah. I could see you do that through either just running a keyframe value or maybe even scrolling the wave texture.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the easiest way would just to be like, okay, if this much is this, it's this strong, if this much is this strong, but the wave texture might be cool too.
Yeah, you can just basically plug in time to a vector, and then if I don't know if you can see my screen on this stream here,
Yeah,
but if we go into shading, and I duplicate or I make a wave texture here, which I'll plug this in so you guys can see what it looks like on like a plane. What is this? This is my donut. Alright, we'll put. Make it a little small. All right, we're gonna just add our donut tutorial, our donut material to this so we can show it off. But basically, this is what a wave texture looks like. It's just straight lines. And so what we can do is there's this phase offset value here that moves the lines, and so you can start this at 0, and then you can I believe with any of these you should be able to animate any of these values. Yeah, insert keyframe. And so now this is a keyframeable value. You can see because it's like yellow or orange, and so you can keyframe this to just move. And then since this is moving, you can plug the value of this into a color ramp.
Oh, you can also set it to rings instead of bands.
Yeah.
And that looks really cool. I'd watch this.
Oh yeah. You can do let me do the rings here. I guess it doesn't look as cool with this thing here, but it's more of like on like a radial texture. It'll look better, like the donut. But yeah, I think Jeff has got a good example of it going on right there.
Yeah, that's like exactly right. Maybe you want to multiply in math mode.
Yeesh. Okay. For some reason, I don't know why, the keyframe on the curve editor here for mine says that it's at -50, but when I play the animation it starts at 50.
Huh.
And then, oh, maybe it doesn't. Hold on, let's see. So from what I believe is 50 degrees, 770. And I want this to be a keyframe 302.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the changing emission. It kind of makes it look like there's just like a weird shadow on it.
Yeah, I think that's partially because you're not doing the clamping. Remember?
The clamping.
Right, you want to clamp it so that it's at least 1, so you don't get that black
Oh,
shadow.
yeah, you're right.
And then if you clamp it, or you multiply it by a big number like 10, then you clamp it so that the least it can be is 1. Then it'll get brighter, or still be at least a little emissive.
Should I clamp before I multiply?
After you multiply. Because if you clamp a 0 to 1 value to be 1 at the very least before you multiply, it'll always be the max value. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot better.
I'm gonna see if I can do a random like twinkle with my sprinkles or something. Yo, what the okay.
Sometimes has that effect.
And I want it to do, what, 3 rotations, I guess? I'm trying to think about this. I'm trying to have mine loop together well, but it's not wanting to.
2, 3, 4.
Okay. So I want this to like chill basically before it. Well, if I start at negative 50, 3 times 360 is 900, 1080, 1030. Okay, let's try that. right.
Oh yeah, I guess we're done.
Yeah, it's 1:30.
Man,
Let's take a look at our finished donut animation.
Yes, definitely.
So here's mine. I just have it kind of going around in a circle. Pretty much like Blender Guru has his. I don't know why mine's let me see if I can go into rendered mode here. Oh no. Pixel donut. That's how you make pixel art right there.
Oh,
try
man.
to render in cycles while you're animating.
Alright, let's see. Guess I should have turned down the emission on the sprinkles. But I'm starting with a chocolate donut.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, it's spinning.
Oh boy.
It's going faster. What's this? It's glowing.
Oh no.
Oh my god. And now it's a chocolate donut again.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
It's very thrilling.
Do you like purposely have it stopping there for a second at the end?
You know, it'd be better to make it smoother and have it kind of...
I think you could do it by just deleting a keyframe or two.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm probably not going to do that then.
Okay. Well, yeah. This has been Making Doughnuts.
Yeah, thanks so much. Stop by the VR lab at DH Hill if you want to make a donut, if you want to put that donut in Unity and experience it in VR.
Yes.
Uh,
Unreal. We have
Unreal.
experience with everything. We can help you make your donut emit flames if
Can
you
do
want
that.
to. Yeah.
You should have lit the donuts on fire. That should have been how we ended.
Yeah. I don't know how to do particles in Blender. I can do it in Unity and Unreal, but I can't do it in Blender.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty simple. I just haven't tried.
Well, thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time when
Yep.
we make a
Fool of ourselves.
bagel. Yep.